Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this is my second live stream today, and probably my last. For this live stream, I want to talk about some racial issues that have been in the news recently. And also, I want to open it up for those people who challenge my views about voting, these people who are quote unquote too woke to vote. I would love to debate you all live. And since I have time today, I'm on vacation, I would love to do that now. I know that a lot of people may not be available. A lot of people are at work right now. So I'm just going to go through and comment on several stories that have caught my attention. So hopefully you all can bear with me. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes for more people to tune in before I get started. I want to thank y'all for tuning in, for supporting my channel. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post my content. Because often people are not aware when I do these videos, and they may not get noticed. There's this whole phenomenon here on YouTube called shadow banning. And I don't know if that's the case with my channel, but so that you can avoid that issue, I encourage you all to hit that notification bell so that you're notified right away as soon as I post something. So I see that there's a couple of people here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully people will join later, and if you're not able to watch right now, hopefully you'll catch it on the playback. But I would really like to debate these people who are against voting live on this channel. And this may not be a good time for you all. You may not be available right now, but I welcome that opportunity. Also, it's possible that I may have a debate on somebody else's channel about that subject. So y'all stay tuned for that. If I hear more, once things are confirmed, then I'll make an announcement on this channel so you can watch that particular debate. If it goes forward, it should be an interesting discussion. So let me go to the first story that I want to discuss for this video. Let me just get to the right screen, and then I'm going to share my screen. So if you could just bear with me a second. All right, so this first story is out of Mississippi. You have this woman by the name of Cindy Hyde-Smith, who's running for U.S. Senator. Now, this woman was on a campaign stop, and she made some controversial statements in support of somebody that supports her. And she basically said this. She said, if he invited me to a public hanging, I would be on the front row. This is what this woman says in this campaign. And you have to bear in mind that this is Mississippi. You have to bear in mind that her opponent is an African-American man by the name of Mike Espy. He's one of the first Black people elected to Congress since Reconstruction. So he's running against her for senator. Now, it's very important to also understand that Mississippi has a long history of lynching. In fact, Mississippi had the highest number of lynchings of African Americans out of all the states in the United States. We all are familiar with Mississippi burning. We know about the lynching and killing of civil rights workers in Mississippi. We know about that long history of people in Mississippi literally hanging Black people to death without any kind of judicial procedure. They would just lynch Black people. And then not only would they lynch Black people, they would celebrate it. A lynching of a Black person was like a source of entertainment to these people. Just like you go to a football game or a basketball game or a baseball game, that's how they saw lynchings. It was like something to entertain these people with. They would gather their families, gather in large crowds, and literally enjoy the suffering of Black people. And not only would they enjoy this event, they would take photographs, and in some cases, they would actually sell postcards and stuff like that, featuring Black people being lynched. Black men and women being lynched. You know, so Mississippi has this long history. And this woman, when she's called out on this stuff, she refuses to apologize. She stands behind her statements. She stands behind it. And this, you know, this article points out here, this article from Essence, it points out how Mississippi held 581 public lynchings, public hangings, the most of any state from 1882 to 1968. That's not that long ago. And right now she's in a runoff election against the brother, as I mentioned before, Mike Espy. But this woman doesn't apologize for this at all. And I think that some people will actually support her because of that statement. And you all will recall that on election day, one of these people from Mississippi wore a T-shirt to the polling place that said Mississippi Justice, and it featured a noose on that shirt. So this is a part of Mississippi's history. And you had this woman, this unapologetic. And, you know, for those people that want to downplay the significance of elections, let me ask you this. Do you really want somebody like this that is, you know, you could say, well, she's racist. You know, some people will say that's going too far. She's not racist. At the very least, this woman is culturally and racially insensitive to the needs and concerns of African Americans. Now, do you want this kind of woman in the U.S. Senate making decisions that affect our lives? Do you want this woman deciding what kind of civil rights laws should be passed, or what kind of laws dealing with criminal justice or other important issues? Do you want her making those decisions? So, you know, this is a reminder of just how important these elections are, you know, and I encourage all the brothers and sisters in Mississippi to vote for the brother Mike Espy over her. You know, this is a woman who's proven that she doesn't care about your concerns as a Black person. Knowing this long history of lynching that took place in Mississippi, knowing that history of oppression, this woman jokes about, you know, attending a public hanging. So that's the first story I wanted to briefly touch on. And again, you know, I encourage those people who are quote unquote too woke to vote to get on here. Hopefully towards the end, I'll be able to post a link and we can have a discussion, a debate about the issue of voting. But I have to touch on these very important race issues that have been raised. You know, this is important because not only just because of her statement, it's important because it reflects a mentality. And it's like, do we really want to have somebody with that kind of mentality in the U.S. Senate, making crucial votes on issues that matter to us? So let me check in with you all, stop sharing my screen for a second before I proceed to the next couple of stories. You know, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Let me see what people are saying before I move on. So the spook who sat by the door said, I didn't vote for Stacey Abrams. Well, who did you vote for? Did you vote for Brian Kemp? You know, the man that's suppressing Black voters down there? Who did you vote for? So somebody said, why are, the spook who sat by the door said, why are Negroes expecting Pecker Woods to apologize for how they feel about Black people? I mean, first of all, I mean, I get your point. Like, it's good to hear what these people really think and stuff like that. And an apology is not sincere, but like, you know, an apology, you know, whether they mean it or not, it's a sign of having to respect of people, like even if they don't mean it. The power of the people forces them to apologize. You know, it forces them to at least acknowledge that they were wrong, whether they believe it or not. And I just think that it's a show of power. And it's a show of at least a willingness to admit that you're wrong, and it shows a willingness to backtrack on something that's this insensitive, to say the least, racist, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that we have every right to demand an apology, to demand an acknowledgement of just how wrong that statement was. You have all these other groups of people that do this as well. You know, whether we're talking about the LGBT community or the Jewish community, they stand up and they speak out against, you know, people that use slurs against them or, you know, make offensive comments. And we do the same. And this is just a continuation of that. There's nothing wrong with demanding respect, demanding an acknowledgement of a horrible history that took place in Mississippi and in this country in general. Yeah, so I disagree with the people that say you know, I don't want this woman to apologize. You know, I think that that's silly. You know, I think that that's silly, frankly. You know, first of all, she shouldn't have said it, period. And, you know, I think that people should be held accountable for everything that they do and say, especially when they're running for public office. You know, you know, we have to speak out against these people when they disrespect us. We have to hold them accountable and at the very least demand that they apologize for their statements. And that's far enough. Like, I mean, that's not far enough. Let me be perfectly clear about that. An apology would not absolve the situation. That would not make me okay with supporting somebody like that, because the apology expresses her true intent. So anyway, you know, the bottom line is this, man. Black people in Mississippi need to vote for her opponent, the brother Mike Espy, because she obviously doesn't care about the interests of Black people. She has zero respect for Black people. All right, so just bear with me a second. Yeah, so somebody said, I don't want her making decisions for us, but racist people make decisions for us all the time. I mean, all you had to do is just stop at, I don't want her making decisions for us, you know, or, you know, making important decisions. You know, the fact that racist people make decisions for us all the time, that's just a testimony to the fact that we need to be more engaged in the political process to make sure that there are less racist people in positions of power. We need to replace the racists with progressives. So the fact that there are other races in power doesn't dismiss, you know, the fact that she has the potential to be a key vote in the U.S. Senate. So, yeah, so again, you know, I challenge these I don't vote people, you know, the too woke to vote people to come on here. You know, towards the end, I'm going to post a link and we could talk live on this subject. So the spook who sat by the door said he didn't vote at all. And this person said, so I'm supposed to vote for Abrams just because she's a Black woman, even though she's okay with aliens voting. And they're brothers with felonies that can't vote. No, first of all, she's not okay with aliens voting. I mean, that's something that people have done. They took a quote out of context and they basically said she advocates illegal immigrants voting. No, she doesn't. I mean, she's made that clear, you know, in response to these ridiculous distortions of her statements. I mean, basically, you're running with the talking points of Brian Kemp. And it's because of people like you. I mean, I don't know if you're from Georgia or whatever, assuming that you are. It's because of apathetic people like you that a racist may potentially become the governor in Mississippi. I mean, in Georgia. Right now, it looks like he has the. He's probably going to win if the votes don't turn out the way people hope they do. There's still a recount going on and all that kind of stuff. There's still votes that haven't been counted and stuff. So it's possible that Abrams may eke out a victory here, but it's not certain. But the only reason why it's close is because you had so many people sit at home and not vote. I mean, while you did have a substantial African American turnout, if every single eligible African American voted, they could have elected the first African American governor in Georgia. And the fact that this man, Brian Kemp, actually tried to suppress Black voters. Over 53,000 applications were held up because of his exact match law or whatever. And 70% of them are Black. That's voter suppression. And he targeted Black people. And if you're okay with somebody like that being governor and you're Black, there's something wrong with you. There's something deeply wrong with you, and it's a reflection of complete apathy. And that's the problem. You got these people that's quote unquote so woke that they don't want to vote, that they would allow a blatant racist to be governor of Georgia. That just tells you how bankrupt that kind of ideology is, man. I mean, here you have a man that was supported by white racists. Racists put in, racist robocalls into Georgia, basically supporting her opponent and trashing her, making racist statements about her and Oprah Winfrey. But you want to take a hands-off approach. I think that's idiotic, man. And I think that it's idiotic that you have so many Black people running around here promoting this racist, anti-immigrant nonsense. They're running with the talking points of white supremacists. The same type of bigotry that these white supremacists have towards the Mexicans, they also have towards Black people. But yet and still, you got Black people running with their talking points. The same Black people that want to condemn stereotypes being used against Black people. They want to condemn generalizations against Black people, but they have no problem making generalizations against Latinos and other immigrant groups of people. And I think that that's hypocrisy. That's blatant hypocrisy. And the other day, as I pointed out in somebody's comment section, they did this video where they showed this, they were talking about this horrific crime that was committed against this Black man. This Black man was killed by an illegal immigrant. And they were basically using that to say, well, this is why we shouldn't have Black and brown coalitions. And I think that that epitomizes ignorance. That's like somebody saying, well, because this one Black man killed a white person, we shouldn't allow Black people into our neighborhoods. We shouldn't trust Black people. Black people are dangerous and they need to have stop and frisk imposed against Black people. And, this explains why police do what they do and all that kind of stuff. It's along the same lines of ignorance. That kind of statement is along the same lines of ignorance. And it's like, you can't condemn white supremacy while you take up white supremacist talking points. And that's basically what I indicated in the comments to somebody's video. But I'm going to move on to a couple of other stories. Another story I want to discuss is this story involving an African-American man that was canvassing in a white neighborhood, and I think it was in Iowa. This is a story that the brother B Money mentioned during one of the hangouts yesterday. So I'm going to pull up the screen so you all can see this. I'm going to share my screen for a second. Just bear with me. All right, so you had this story where you had this brother, Mr. Hill, I don't want to mispronounce his name, but he was going around canvassing for Representative David Young, a Republican from Iowa. And he was canvassing in this neighborhood in West Des Moines. So he's going around trying to get support, campaigning for this GOP candidate, and the police stop him. The police complain that they received reports of suspicious persons and all that kind of stuff, and that's the reason why they stopped this brother. I will include a link to this particular story in the description box so that you all can read it for yourself and actually watch the video clip that's contained here. Again, I don't play video clips on my channel because I don't want to deal with copyright issues, but you all can go to the video by clicking the article. This is an article from Atlanta Black Star. So basically, the police stopped this brother. And, they ask him to stop and all this kind of stuff. And the brother's like, you don't have the right to stop me. I'm not breaking any laws. And then the officer says, I'm not going to tell you again, stop, I will detain you. And then he's like, detain me for what? Have I broken any laws? And then the officer's like, you're not listening. And it doesn't matter if you've broken a law or not. We're investigating a suspicious person. And they proceed to arrest this brother. And from what I understand, he gets released later. This brother is not from the area. He's actually from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But he came, he went to Iowa to help out with this Republican candidate's campaign. And, this is just another example of doing something while Black. It's like in certain areas, you can't do hardly anything while Black. I mean, you had the brothers in Philadelphia that were trying to wait while Black at a Starbucks. They were arrested. You had the situation where somebody's doing all kinds of things, driving while Black, barbecuing while Black, selling water while Black. I mean, the list goes on and on of examples of Black people being harassed for being in certain areas. And it's my understanding that this is an affluent white neighborhood, and they see this young Black man and they're like, he must be a robber or he must be some drug dealer or some kind of criminal. It's like they attach Blackness to criminality. So any Black person is viewed as suspect, as being up to no good. And you all remember Trayvon Martin, the prime example of how they view Black people. Even people like, that are supposedly not white or whatever, still have some of these racist perceptions of Black people. And the thing that I want to highlight about this is, man, you got a lot of these Republicans, these right-wing Republicans, and a lot of them deny that racism is a factor in the society. A lot of these people want to condemn groups like Black Lives Matter, groups that are speaking out against racial profiling and police brutality. They want to condemn these groups. They want to downplay the issue of white privilege. I mean, you got these people like that Brandon Tatum clown and Candace Owens, and the list goes on and on. That guy, Anthony Brian Logan, these delusional Negroes that pretend like racism is not a problem in society. And they eventually have wake-up moments like this. I mean, this guy may have been one of those people. He may be one of those people, the typical Negro that joins the Republican Party, that's completely lost and blind, deaf, and dumb to the problems of racism and all that kind of stuff. Well, he had his wake-up call because here he is campaigning for this white Republican in this white neighborhood. He probably thinks he's welcome among these people, but they see him as alien. They see him as an outsider. They view him as dangerous. That's why they called the police. And, hopefully incidents like this will wake these people up and make them realize that regardless of whether they're wearing that Make America Great Again hat or they're in the GOP or they're some respectable Negro with an education, at the end of the day, you are still Black in this society. You are still the N-word to many of these people in this society, and you are treated as such. And it's about time for these people to wake up. Like, the only time people like a Candace Owens mention racism is when it serves their purposes. Even when it's not an example of real racism, they invent it to serve their purposes. But when you have real examples of racism like this, examples of police brutality and all that kind of stuff, this woman and these other conservatives downplay this issue. And, eventually they're going to have their wake up call, just like this brother did, stopped by the police. And I'm sure he may be one of those people, and I'm not sure this is the case, but he may be one of those people that talk Blue Lives Matter, that talk against Black Lives Matter, that talk against, racism being a real issue in the society. And now he's had his wake up call. So I'm going to pause for a second, see what you all are saying, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of other stories, and hopefully I'll be able to open it up so that people can debate me live on this voting issue. So this person, a dude's thoughts, said, why do you think it's talking points of white supremacy? Because, first of all, these white supremacists are fearful of the browning of America. That's number one. They view these immigrants, immigrants of color, as a threat to their existence as a race, and they perpetuate this idea that, that these immigrants are going to overrun America. They fear being a minority in this country. They know that white people are reproducing at lower rates than people of color. They're concerned about interracial marriages and stuff like that, and relationships. So they fear that they will be genetically annihilated and they will lose political power as you have more immigrants of color coming to this country. They fear that there'll be more people voting liberal, and voting their interests, and just more people of color than white people. That's what they fear. And they hide behind this rhetoric about immigration. These people that talk all this anti-immigrant nonsense, they don't have any problem with more white people coming to this country. Donald Trump made it clear when he referred to Africa as a shithole continent and he referred to Haiti as a shithole country. He made it clear that he doesn't want people of color coming to this country. And he talked about, why can't we have more people from Norway coming to this country? And that is the mentality of these white supremacists. And sadly, you have these ignorant Negroes running around here parroting that nonsense. These immigrants aren't taking any jobs from Black people, despite all this false and misinformation that's put out here. There are plenty of reports that talk about how with more immigration, you have a greater need for goods and services. You have more selling of goods, and you have more services that are needed to accommodate more people. And that generates jobs that many Americans get. But people want to close their eyes to that reality. I've cited it before. But yeah, so I just had to talk about that. Yeah, and they don't mind. That's a good point, Blessed One. They don't mind white Cubans coming to America because they know that they're going to vote Republicans. In fact, like there was some kind of exception that allowed, immigrants from Cuba to come to this country. They didn't have to go through the same screening process as people from Haiti or from other parts of the Caribbean or from other parts of Latin America. They allowed them to come to America to undermine Castro's Cuba. And, for that reason. And because they knew that a lot of those people were right-wing and all that kind of stuff and would support the Republican Party. Yeah, I heard about those crimes. The spook who sat by the door said, well, have you heard about the crime where the guy mutilated? That's one of the cases that I was talking about earlier. Of course, those criminals need to be punished to the full extent of the law, but let's not try to paint with a broad brush and assume that all immigrants are criminals. Just like you don't want white people to assume that all Black people are drug dealers and gangsters and stuff like that. Because of the activities of a minority within our community. And the same is true for immigrants. Like, why would you want to stereotype a whole group of people based on the conduct of a few? Just like Donald Trump called them rapists and criminals and all that kind of stuff as a group, when it's only a minority that participates in that criminal activity. Just like in the hood, like it's only a minority that participates in drug dealing and, you know, gang lifestyle and violence and all that kind of stuff. But the whole community as a collective gets tarnished. And coming from that experience, why would you want to replicate what you complain about? So let me go to the next story real quick. Before I continue on. But yeah, it's right. You're right. Bless One. You know, Bless One says that these black folks are sounding more like white supremacists than the white supremacists. Exactly, man. You got these people that proclaim to be about black power and stuff like that, and they don't realize how bigoted and ignorant and prejudiced they sound when they're running with these racist talking points from people like a Donald Trump, from people like the alt-right and the KKK and stuff like that. Yeah, and then all these people like Pat, you know, they just repeat what these people like, you know, all these talking heads on YouTube say about like you need an agenda and all that kind of stuff. I mean, all these people that are telling you you need an agenda, none of them, virtually none of them, have actually put forth an actual detailed political agenda for the black community. The only one that I'm aware of that people have mentioned is Afro Synergy, and you know he's a right-wing Trump supporter. Um, but none of these so-called pro-blacks, other than that guy, have actually put forth an agenda. You know, not your Tariq Nasheeds, not your what's her name, Cynthia G, or your Boyce Watkins, or your Black Authority, or any of these people, man, or their imitators. You know, none of them. You know, their fanboys and stuff on here. None of them have put forth their own political agenda, man. But yet they want to use that as a convenient excuse for not to vote. And, you know, as plenty of people have suggested, I wonder if some of these people are not being paid off to pacify black people, to discourage black people from voting, discourage black people from you know, participating in the political process. Yeah, so I'm going to go on to the next couple of stories and I'm going to continue. And again, if we have time, I'm going to open it up. So another story that brings attention to the fact of how important elections are is this story out of Dallas. It's a story that I've been following, and I want to take some time right now to talk about this briefly. So you all remember the story of Botham Jean, the brother who was in his own apartment, and a police officer proceeded to enter his apartment and kill him. This police officer's name is Amber Guyger. This brother was minding his own business. He was not breaking any law. He had every right to be in his apartment. But this police officer right here, Amy Guyger, went into his apartment and shot and killed him. And she claimed that she was in the wrong. She thought she was in her apartment and she thought he was an intruder. And for that reason, she claims that she killed him and stuff like that. That's the reason why she killed him. Now, this woman has since been charged with manslaughter. She's been fired from her job with the Dallas Police Department. And you have a new DA who has been elected there. The brother's name is John Crusoe. He is replacing the other district attorney. Her name was Faith Johnson. She was a Republican appointee. And she was like heavily criticized for this case because she, first of all, didn't bring charges prompt enough. And then when she did, she only brought manslaughter charges. But this brother says that he wants to look at the case and he's considering, you know, charging her, you know, charging Guyger with murder, with actual murder for this crime. And he said, based on the information that he has, he thinks that she should be charged with murder. And if he's able to, he will charge her with murder as the newly elected DA. And that stands for district attorney, for those of you who don't know. So I just had to provide this update. I think that this is a positive development that you have an election, um, of this brother who's gonna, who probably will bring murder charges against her. And this is just a reminder of just how important elections are. You know, who's your DA matters because they are able to bring charges in these police brutality cases. And we have the ability to decide who's going to be our district attorney or our state's attorney or whatever label is used in your particular jurisdiction. So this is something that's very important. And this brother was basically talking about how police officers need to be held accountable like anyone else. And, I hope that this woman is held accountable for killing this brother who was minding his own business, a professional, educated brother, not a drug dealer or anything like that, somebody that was doing something positive. His life is snuffed out because this lady went into his apartment and killed him for no reason at all. Now, it's my understanding that the police union is trying to make excuses for her, trying to say, well, she was tired and all this and that, trying to justify what she did and all that. So I hope that she's punished to the full extent of the law, and I hope that the family recovers a substantial settlement or judgment against the city for this horrific crime that took place. So let me stop sharing this and then, check in with you all real quick. Oh, actually, did I? Oh, I wasn't even sharing it. Sorry. Yeah, so this is the story right here. I thought I was sharing it. Sorry about that, y'all. But this is the story that I was referencing. And this will be in the description box so that you can read it for yourself. All right, so let me stop sharing that and check in with y'all real quick before I continue on. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Let's see where we left off. All right, hold on one second. Okay. So Blessed One said, I don't want people judging me on the actions of the deviants of the Black community. Exactly. Like if you don't want someone to judge you based on the activities of the deviants or the minority in your community that are committing crimes and stuff like that, then why judge other people based on the activities of a minority within their group? Yeah, so people say, yeah, I mean, I know that some Blacks were Republicans before turning Democrats. And I mean, I understand that. I understand that the Democrats were KKK members way 100 years ago or so ago. And it's like Republicans always pull up that stuff as if it means something today. When the fact of the matter is, the alt-right of today are Republicans. The KKK members of today are Republicans. Of today, not 100 years ago. Your David Dukes are Republicans. Your Richard Spencers are Republicans. They are the ones who support the Republican Party. In fact, there's an article about how David Duke and his group are claiming credit for Donald Trump getting elected. And I'm just going to pull up that article real quick while I have you here. Let me see if I can pull it from my Facebook page. You bear with me a second. Who aren't following me on Facebook, I encourage you to follow my New Possibilities page, like it on Facebook. Yeah, I think it's on this one. Hold on one second. It may be on my. I need to make sure. Just bear with me 1 minute. Yeah, it may be on my New Possibilities page. Hold on one second. Because I have my personal account and then I have my New Possibilities page. Just bear with me 1 second. Yeah, here it is. Let me pull this up. You know, people want to talk about 100 years ago and what the Democrats, you know, all that stuff about what the Democrats did 100 years ago when you got Republicans doing stuff like this today. So this article right here from Business Insider um, is about David Duke, and he says that our people played a huge role in electing Donald Trump. And this is an old article from shortly after the election. This is what David Duke said, you know, a former Grand Wizard of the KKK. He said, "This is one of the most exciting nights of my life. Make no mistake about it, our people played a huge role in electing Donald Trump." So let me stop sharing my screen for a second. So people always want to talk about the Republicans the Democrats of 100 years ago. But they don't want to talk about the Republicans of today. You know, they want to talk about how the Democrats were KKK founders and this and that, and that black people used to be Republicans and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's true because the Republican Party was a different party back then than it is today. Today's Republican Party is a party that panders to white supremacists. Today's Republican Party is a party that uses the Southern strategy to try to get votes from racist white people. And Donald Trump is running with that Southern strategy. That's why he has so much support from these white supremacists and stuff. So let's continue on through your comments before I go on to the next couple of stories. Yeah, and I agree with Dude's thought about some of these pro-blacks hustling just to make cash. Yeah, I mean, that's just an actual fact. Oh, I don't know. I'm not familiar with African Esquire. I'm gonna have to check out that channel. I'm gonna look that channel up. Hold on one second, y'all. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, it is their choice at the end of the day, Pat, like if they want to vote or not. And you know, my problem isn't with like the individuals who say, "Well, I'm not voting." My problem is with those who have huge platforms and they're using their platforms to discourage people from voting. Um, you know, and I've done this time and time again. I've talked about this time and time again. Instead of like responding to people in the comment sections, I'll be happy to debate anybody live right now about voting or not voting. I'm going to do that like right after I go through a couple of these stories. Um, and I agree with, you know, the people that are saying we don't have that luxury to not vote. When you have actual white supremacists and, you know, white supremacist sympathizers running for office, we don't have the luxury to sit back and let these people get elected and make decisions that are detrimental to our lives. We don't have that luxury. It's like these people better wake up, man, and realize what time it is. Yeah, so somebody said you got to look at our overall condition despite voting, but we can't leave it off the table as a tactic. We just need a strategy and agenda now. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's obviously room for more improvement in the Black community, but we can't pretend like we haven't made great progress compared to where we were. I mean, we were held in bondage as slaves, bought and sold, beaten, and all that kind of stuff. We did live under Jim Crow for decades, where we didn't have any rights to vote, any rights to go where we want, or go to hotels, or go to restaurants, or sit wherever we want, buses, just basic things. We didn't have those rights, but today we have certain rights. We didn't have the same level of Black people educated, the same numbers of elected officials that we have today. So there's been substantial progress in the Black community. We can't pretend like there has been no progress, but again, of course, there's more progress that needs to be made. All right. Yeah, and Elaine Lloyd makes a great point. She said it's crazy to see these people with 100,000 subs on YouTube telling people not to vote when some of these races were off by like 12,000 votes. If they voted, they could have made a difference. I mean, yes, these people have substantial platforms. Like, I think Boyce Watkins is over 250,000 subscribers. You know, he has a voice. You know, the Tariq Nasheeds and these other people, they have substantial audiences, and they can actually make a difference in some of these elections. But they're not about making any kind of difference. They're just about getting attention and getting their subs and their money up. That's what they're about. Yeah, so Water Sniper said, can you give us a concrete example of that voting works? Something noticeable that we can see. I mean, I don't know what bigger example you can have than, you know, the impact of President Obama compared to what Donald Trump is doing to reverse everything that Obama tried to implement. And I've gone through the long litany of what Obama did for Black people. I won't repeat it here, but I encourage people to check that out. Check out my past videos on that subject. So let me move on to the next story that I wanted to discuss. Just bear with me. I'm going to share my screen in a second. So I saw this story on the Grill about this officer who killed Terrence Crutcher, you know, shot and killed his brother. You know, this woman got off. And I did a video a while ago. If I get a chance to, I will post it in the cards. But in that video, I was basically saying that you know, it's more likely than not she's going to get away with this. And that's what happened. She got away with it. And here we are a couple of years later, after that shooting. And this woman has been hired to give a talk about surviving the aftermath of a critical incident to the Southeastern Homicide Investigators Association. So that's like a prestigious speaking engagement. It's about surviving the aftermath of a critical incident. What about Terrence Crutcher? You know, Crutcher, who was killed by this woman and whose family received no justice for what happened. You know, this organization, as you know, LDF points out, they should uninvite her from speaking. You know, this is a woman who killed a Black man. And this happens so often. It's like Tupac said, you know, they kill a Negro and they become a hero for doing this stuff. That's what happens. Like those police that were responsible for the killing of Freddie Gray, they received an award from a right-wing organization. I'm gonna pull up the actual I'm gonna pull up the actual images so that you can see this for yourself. So if you just bear with me. Just bear with me 1 second. So you can see this for yourself. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me see if I go to images, if it'll come up. What's that lady's name? Let me see if it comes up if I put Fox up here. Yeah, so here it is right here. You all can see it. Right-wing gala gave Freddie Gray cops standing ovation. So these guys were the guest of honor at this award ceremony. 3 of the cops who were connected to the killing of Freddie Gray were honored at this award ceremony. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second. That's what happens. That's the kind of stuff that happens. We saw what happened with that guy, George Zimmerman, for killing that brother Trayvon Martin. He became a celebrity. People were asking for his autographs. They even talked about having a celebrity boxing match with that guy. So these people profit. They get recognition for killing Black people. And you had this woman, this Betty Shelby, profiting off of the death of the brother Terrence Crutcher. And that should be an outrage. We should be speaking out against that stuff, condemning that kind of stuff, making sure that that kind of stuff doesn't happen. But time and time again, we see this occur where black people are killed and their killers profit off of the death of Black people. They get recognition off of the death of Black people. They get paid to do interviews off of the death of Black people. That guy, George Zimmerman, was selling artwork, selling the gun that he used to kill that brother, doing autographs and all kinds of things. Treated like some damn hero when he was the real thug, when he was the real criminal. Yeah, this stuff just gets me worked up. Just bear with me a second. So I'm going to read from this letter. Just bear with me a second. This letter that LDF put out said that Deputy Shelby is not a victim of Mr. Crutcher's homicide. The late Mr. Crutcher and his survivors are the victims. But yet they want to treat her like she's someone who made it through something, that she's such a victim and she's the survivor. Such an outrage, man. And now, like, because of their work, because they send out that letter, that organization rescinded the offer to Betty Shelby to speak at the 2018 Southeastern Homicide Investigators Association conference. And, you know, it's just a shame that it took a letter from a civil rights organization to convince these people of what should have been obvious. But let me just go away from that and just bear with me a second. I'm going to go on to the next story before I close out. And I'm going to open it up for any of these people that want to debate about voting. You know, I'll be glad to debate you. Okay, let me share my screen real quick. Yeah, I got to head to the gym soon. Yeah, so this is the last story that I want to talk about. Yeah, this is a story that I talked about some time ago when this incident first happened. So you had this white man who shot at a black boy for simply knocking on his door seeking assistance. You know, this little brother missed his bus or whatever, his school bus, and he knocked on the door for directions. And this white man proceeded to shoot a shotgun at this teenage boy. And fortunately, the brother was not injured or he didn't suffer any kind of, you know, serious damage or anything. He wasn't killed, you know, thank God. But, you know, it's only the grace of God that that brother wasn't killed or anything. So this man that was responsible for that, his name is Jeffrey Ziegler, you know, of Rochester Hills, Michigan. He was sentenced to 2 to 10 years in prison for assault with the intent to commit great bodily harm, and an additional 2 years for using a firearm during a felony. And they're saying that he will serve at least 4 years before he's eligible for parole. And he expressed remorse like after being sentenced, and I guess he's doing that for leniency. Yeah, and this says that like he had a neighborhood watch sign on his door, so for that reason, the boy thought he was safe. He thought he could go to that particular house for assistance. Because this is the situation: the brother Brennan Walker, the 14-year-old kid, woke up late for school on the morning of April 12th. He missed his bus, and he decided to walk to his high school, and he got lost, from what I understand. And you know, he went to that house for assistance, and that's what ended up happening. This guy ended up firing shots at this man, at this boy, and now he's been sentenced to 4 years. And I'm good that this has happened. You know, I'm glad that this has happened. Excuse me. I'm glad that this happened. And you know, this is some semblance of justice. You know, this man will serve out some, you know, at least 4 years for shooting his gun at a black boy. It's like you can't do anything, like I mentioned before, while being black. It's like it's a crime to seek assistance while black. You know, you're viewed as some kind of criminal. It's like, why did this man choose to fire a gun at a 14-year-old boy who's simply seeking help? We saw a similar situation out of Detroit where this young woman was shot and killed by this white male homeowner, who proceeded to shoot her because she was seeking assistance. She knocked on the door and this man proceeded to shoot and kill her. But yeah, I had to talk about these couple of issues that have been in the news lately. Let me check in with you all real quick before I sign out. But yeah, I welcome y'all to debate me. If anybody wants to debate me about being so woke that they don't want to vote and all that kind of stuff, you know, I'll be happy to do so now. I'm going to go through your comments and then I'm going to post a link in the description box so that people can hop on here real quick. I have a little bit of time. I think I could do like 30 minutes. But let me first see what y'all are saying. Shout out to LA. I saw you in the chat room somewhere. 1 second. Yeah, so somebody's complaining about Democrats and Republicans getting funds from these prisons and that contribute to mass incarceration. Yeah, some politicians do. Like I think of both parties receive, donations from private prisons and all that kind of stuff. It's up to us to discern between the politicians that receive funds from those types of institutions and politicians who don't. It's up to us to discern between those politicians that uh, support policies that perpetuate mass incarceration and those who don't. That's what we have to do. We have to do the heavy lifting. We have to do the research, and we have to be the ones to talk to these politicians and state our positions on the issues and demand that they adhere to our positions. That's our responsibility. Yeah, and people are this guy is dismissing Obama as a puppet and this and that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, despite the rhetoric and all that other stuff that like people like to engage in, there's a night and day difference between what Obama is doing versus what Donald Trump is doing. There are plenty of examples of what Obama has done that's beneficial to Black people. And people that are familiar with this channel know that I've listed, plenty of things that Obama has done, plenty of examples of what he's done. So to just dismiss him as a puppet, I think it's just intellectually lazy. I mean, like I've said on the last live stream that I did on this subject, I mean, people don't want to go into the woods and, do the research and, understand what kind of things that brother actually did, what kind of laws and policies he helped pass that are beneficial to the Black community. Instead, they want to just do the easy thing, the intellectually lazy thing, and just label somebody as a puppet. And so any of y'all that have so much to say about voting, I mean, you're more than welcome to try to debate me live about these issues. Shout out to the mad head doctors. We don't always agree, but on the issue of voting, that's something that we do agree on to some extent. He says that people really need to learn the differences in the two parties. They're not the same, and that's an actual fact. I mean, these two parties are not one and the same, but people are they don't want to research anything. Instead they want to just have somebody tell them what to think. They want to listen to your Tariq Nasheeds and these other people. Yeah, so somebody said, do you think it's okay for Black people to invest in private prisons and make money off of them? Of course not. I don't think that. I don't think that at all. Okay. So I don't know. Yeah, so I see that LA posted his email address in here. So I'm just going to post a link. It's easier for me to just post a link so that people can join if they want to debate me on these issues. Let me close some of these windows so I'm not using too much of my internet. Hold on one second. Oh yeah, there was one other issue I want to talk about. I may get to it after I post the link if nobody jumps on. I wanted to talk about that blackfishing issue because I saw a segment of Lashid For You's video where she was talking about Tommy Sotomayor and his whole take on that issue. Yeah, so I posted the link. So if people want to join and debate me on this issue about voting, I'll be happy to do so right now, live. I know that I think LA is one of the people, from what I understand, I'm not like in favor of voting so much. So yeah, I invite you to join. The link is right there for anybody that wants to join the discussion. I know a lot of people are probably at work right now. I'm just fortunate to be on vacation right now, so I have a little time. So I'll wait around a couple of seconds. And if not, I'll go on to the next subject that I wanted to touch on here, which deals with this so-called black fishing issue. Yeah, so it's easy to type things out in these chat rooms. That's very easy to do. But it's a whole nother issue when it comes to like actually debating your stuff live, like actually defending your position live. So I'll see if anybody has the heart to step forward. Again, like I challenge any of these people, man. Like, and if hopefully things will work out. Like somebody contacted me to see if I was interested in debating somebody dealing with this issue. And if that comes through, I'll let y'all know. But I welcome the opportunity to debate any of these people. Oh, what's up? I see LA's on here. Or somebody clicked in. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Let me turn you up. I can barely hear you.
I try not to use my mic. Let me plug my mic.
Oh, let me turn up my volume on my. Yeah, my volume's turned up, so yeah, we should be okay. Hopefully, everybody can hear. So, what did you have to say about this, LA?
Well, most of the time when people, hold on, let me make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most of the time when people debate, it usually means that we're about to argue. That's what debates usually end up being. But
Yeah.
I'm really here to learn from you because ever since I voted for Obama was the last time I voted in the first election.
Right.
The second election, after he didn't do nothing, I decided not was that be the vote. Then after that, I look at the situation of us finally having a black president. It was us feeling like that's going to be something different going on, and then for things to actually not get better at all. Yeah, I kind of lost my taste for the voting thing.
So, what did you expect to happen when Obama got elected?
I'm not saying I actually expected something, but that's the thing I'm saying. So, like, what has the Democratic Party done that the Republican Party hasn't done? It's like it's been both under both regimes.
Yeah, so I'll mention like some of the things that Obama has done, and real quick. Like for instance, Obama investigated the Baltimore Police Department, the Ferguson Police Department, and he entered consent decrees, which are agreements with those departments for them to end discriminatory practices and excessive use of force and all that kind of stuff. And now those particular jurisdictions and a few others are bound by those agreements. Those are court orders. So if they violate those orders, they can be brought back to court and compelled to be brought back into compliance. So that's one thing. So instead of getting on YouTube and just talking about ending police brutality, that brother used the Justice Department to actually investigate those police departments and actually implement reforms to end discriminatory practices. Another thing that the brother did was the Brothers Keepers program that he established to help out inner city youth and communities all around this country, Black youth and Latino youth. So that's one thing. Another thing that he did was, move away from enforcing mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenders. So instead of people getting like harsh sentences for nonviolent drug offenses, he got rid of, he encouraged